Hi students, today we will discuss third lecture of sixth module. All of you know that sixth module is power and politics and third lecture is political behavior. Students, this is one of the issue. It is not the domain of political science. Every people, those who are in organization, every people used to behave politically, knowingly, unknowingly. It is one of the very important and very crucial context. What way you can influence others for achieving your personal goals as well as organizational goals. I will see you some examples of political behavior at national level, politician, and also in the organizational level. My object is not in this particular lecture to thoroughly discuss about the political behavior of political leader, but we need to see exactly what way political leader behave and what way one person in organization he behaves. Unless you understand the political leader, what way they behave, political behavior, and you can't understand right way what would be the political behavior of individual in organization. Few agendas which I plan to discuss today, this particular discussion, there is key characteristics of political behavior, opportunities of political behavior. Thing is that being a student of political science, they are studying political behavior in different way. They are studying that what behavior especially one particular political leader needs to convince the audience, convince the common people for attracting their personality or gaining victory in electoral process. But here is agenda somewhat different. In particular organization, what kind of normal political behavior we are observing basically? Does it required or not? If it is required, what extent? Then what is the opportunities of political behavior? Students, your personality, big five personality you have studied earlier, to convince others. Similarly, political behavior is equally important to convince others, because your objective is very much clear to satisfy your personal goal as well as organizational goal, organizational mission. What way you have to behave so that both the goal can be achieved in right way. Key characteristics of political behavior one by one: influence oriented, social and psychological factors shape political behavior, influenced by institutional and cultural context. There are three different things I am supposed to discuss one by one. Influence oriented. What exactly it is? Robert 1971, political behavior is fundamentally aimed at influencing governance, policies or public opinion. That is the definition normally political behavior. But in organization, politics is new thing. So try to understand what political behavior in political science. then only you can adopt this kind of principle in organization. As I told earlier also, very beginning lecture, organizational behavior is the multidisciplinary subject basically that covers different other areas of social science, management, economics, sociology, psychology, anthropology. So unless you understand the real sense of political thoughts, political behavior, which is clearly defined in political science discipline, you can't apply this thing in business or organization. Political behavior is fundamentally aimed at influencing governance, policies or public opinion. You want to create influence on governance, policies or public opinion. What way? What are the techniques you have? Example, in politics, voting in election, protesting against government policies or lobbying for policy changes. And this is same thing in national level, same thing in organization also. Like as you are in the trade union, you are the member of trade union, you are the leader of trade union, you have to lobby some cases for getting some of benefits from management. So that government policies here in organizations, that may be some of organizational policies, like as HR policy maybe some DEI policy, what way can lobbying. And remember, policy normally in organization, as far as any kind of policy, although it is the democratic setup, but because of representation of workers in governance system, not much influential in India. So that cases, you need some sort of power of bargaining, and that is the political behavior. So you must learn from national leadership and also the political system. Now, social and psychological factors shape political behavior. Political behavior is influenced by socialization, family, education, religion, and psychological factors, political identity, emotions, cognitive bias. These are all the very Almond and Barba, 1963. It is very important part. It is influenced by socialization, that is family, education, religion, and psychological factors. Family, education, sociological construct that influence political behavior. Education is also very important. Your experience is also very important, and your religion is also very important, that shape what kind of behavior would be in policy making system. Now see, in political system, people raised in politically active families are more likely to participate in election. Normally it is happen in the case of electoral system. Politically affluent people, they can easily promote their own family members to participate in election. Similarly in organization also, if you have the good follower, you can motivate them to participate actively in governance system. So what exactly political system exists and how we are adopting this kind of things, politics, in institution, in organization, that is very important. Social psychological factor. Here psychological factor like as the emotion, cognitive bias. Emotion is very important things. What way, what point of time, what type of emotion is required so that you can convince the people, politically you can gain. Then influence by institutional cultural context is very important. What does it mean? Lynch and Stephen, 1996, defined political system, electoral rules and cultural values determine how people engage politically. Political system, electoral rules, cultural values, These are the three different things that define that how people engage politically. Now students, you just try to understand what does it mean engage politically. That means you need some kind of power, you need some kind of practice so that you can fulfill your desire, you can fulfill your aim. You want to be leader because wherever you are working, your role is not only employee, you have to be a manager, you have to be in top position of the organization. You must interfere in different activities of the organization. You may be the activist, like as in example, in authoritarian regime, political behavior may take the form of underground resistance, while in democracies it involves voting and lobbying. These are the two different things. If authoritarian regime, political behavior is not much complicated, but in the case of democracy, it is very important what way you can keep your people in your favor. So authoritarian structure of organization, democratic style of organization, both defines that what kind of political behavior is needed. Now, opportunities for political behavior. This is very fundamental questions. Do you involve in politics? I am not asking to involve in politics. I am asking that what way you can convince your opinion. What way you can say that my opinion is good opinion, my thought is good thought, that can be applied in organizations, but who will support you? It is not the matter of leadership, it is the matter of what way you can convince the others. Enhancing democratic participation, that is one of the organizational policy, democratic participation. What way? Students, if you have studied industrial relation, you have seen that what way the labor union, a trade union, they just influence in decision making process. That means they need the right, they need the power. They need some kind of process of bargaining power. And that is the constitutional, what I say, that constitutional right of collective bargaining. As a result, the people participate in the industrial relation process. If it is not democratic, people may not participate. That should be the organizational policy. Representation of marginalized groups. This is very important. In organization, we have the different group of people are there, like as grassroots people, blue collar workers, some middle level people, white collar employees, white collar people, some executive level people, those are called as the golden color people. Every cases you can find some kind of marginalized groups. Their involvement is very important, their participation is very important. Policy influence and change is very important. That means crafting one policy, corporate policy of particular organization. Thing is that how many people are involved that particular process of policy crafting? Very few people, yeah, maximum people, yeah, different group of people. Now see that policy influence or change, and it is possible if you have the political right, if the people are influenced by politics, political behavior, then definitely you can change the system, you can you can have some kind of new system of organizational policy. Strengthening political awareness and education is very important, and I think it's very informally, I think that corporate executives, they are influencing the people. You just involve in the decision making process and give some kind of useful feedback so that good policy can be formed. Now, enhancing democratic participation, its clear-cut demarcations already have told. Political behavior allows citizens to participate in governance through voting, activism, civic engagement, Robert, and free and fair election in democratic societies provide an opportunity for people to choose their leaders. And this is basically the political thoughts. So my intention is that try to implement this kind of things in business or of your organization. Every citizen means every employee. Fair election means like as trade union elections and some other elections in the organizations, when you select the leader and everything. Representation of marginal groups, some underprivileged groups to voice their concern and demand equal rights is very common in organization basically. We have marginalized group like us, that particular groups I can say that blue collar people, whereas they are in large number, but they are not in good position to influence in policy making. The civil rights movements in the US, feminist movements have successfully influenced policies. I think this is global picture. And you can find in organizations also different types of movement are there basically that creates, that transform, foster the policy, very pragmatic policies, keeping in mind development of organization. Now, policy influence and change, political behavior such as protest, lobbying, advocacy can influence policy decisions. This is very important. It is also some of legitimate process already prescribed in our industrial relation system. We have the several laws, several acts are there basically, whereas laborers are given some kind of rights to protest or to lobbying, and through which they can protect their own interest also. The environmental movement has led to global climate policies like the Paris Agreement. This is the sum of example globally. So these thoughts can be in organizations also. This is my point. Now see, strengthening political awareness and education is very important. Engaging in political behavior increase civic awareness, critical thinking and political literacy. Almond and Barba 1963. Media coverage of the election educates voters on policies and candidates. Means political behavior, maximum examples I have given in political system. But thing is that it's not enough to understand, but things to be applied in particular organizations also, that political behavior increase civic awareness, critical thinking and political literacy. It's very important that every people, those are in organizations, they must be knowing that what is the sense of their participation in organizational policies. Promoting social and political stability is very important. Political engagement can create stable societies by providing peaceful ways to resolve conflicts. It's very important in organizations also, conflict resolution, because grievance conflict is very common in any organizations. For resolving this kind of things, what is very much needed, social and political stability is very important. That means in organizations, the trade union and some other people, some other forums, different types of committees, they must be very stable. So as a result, you can resolve some kind of conflict and other things. Regular elections prevent political unrest by offering democratic mechanism for leadership change. It's very important part. You must be knowing continuously through communication, adoption of some kind of democratic style of governance in organizations that may lead some kind of development of organizations. Ultimately, that can improve the leadership in certain organizations. Now see, digital activism and global influence is very important. The rise of digital platforms has expanded opportunities for political engagement beyond borders. Online movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter have influenced policies worldwide. This is very important part. Some civic movement you have seen in USA in 2013, Black Lives Matter. There is the people voice against racism, people voice against color. These are black and white, like that, some kind of movement. Me Too, that is some kind of movement you have seen in the year 2013 most probably. Of course, yes, 2013. There is Me Too movement, that is some kind of movement towards sex abuse and some other things, like as some kind of movement from the part of the female across the globe, what kind of harassment at workplace, this kind of exposure, and one of the movement that already we have experienced, the digital activism and global experience, global influence. What I observed basically, since in power and politics basically in third lecture, political behavior, without political behavior, I think that harassment, some kind of negative attitude of employees and other things can be abolished without any kind of awareness. So either it may be digital awareness, maybe some kind of other type of awareness. So it is needed for any kind of organization. Now some of questions, see the total lecture you have seen, that is basically what kind of factors that induce political behavior, then opportunities of political behavior, and every cases there is opportunities of political behavior, not only national level, in organization level also. It is one of the new thoughts that can be adopted in organization by creating awareness and creating some kind of good influence among the group of people by some forces, so that they may be actively participate in trade union related context, collective bargaining related context. Some of questions as I mentioned here, that is how do various dimensions of organizational politics interact to shape decision making process, power distribution and workplace relationship. What underlying social and psychological mechanism drive political behavior within organizations, how do they influence workplace dynamics. How does the concept of democratic participation contrast with the experience of marginalized groups in terms of access, agency and representations. How can leaders strategically, ethically navigate organizational politics to foster innovation and positive changes while maintaining healthy work culture. So these are all the questions basically. Sometimes I have also used some kind of word organizational politics, political behavior. These are all interchangeably we are using some cases, but there may be some kind of contrast between the political behavior and organizational politics. But these are all the questions I am telling you that will help you to understand political behavior, that what way you can use marginalized people basically for getting their protection of their rights. This is very important. Now see, some of reference are there basically that can be used for your study purpose, nature of belief system and Converts P 1964. These are all very useful books. Then Downs A 1957, Newton's Economic Theory of Democracy, and Michael R 1911, Political Parties, a sociological study of the tendency of modern democracy. These are all the things. Civic Culture, Almond and Barber 1963. These are all the books you can see. So in a nutshell, you can see that political behavior is not bad. That is knowingly, unknowingly, people are using this kind of concept in every places, not only in selecting some of people through electoral process in organizations. Also there is widespread scope, and you can use this concept in organization also. Thanks for listening. Thank you very much.